Okay, this is the lesson video for the 1.4 notes, solving systems of linear equations, and then we're going to get to where we're still doing systems of linear equations, except we're going to add in a third variable. So we're going to review what you did in Algebra 1 by solving systems with just two variables. In any of our systems, you can get one solution. You can get no solution, infinite solutions. That's a possibility for any system of equations. One solution, if I have two lines that intersect, that point where they intersect, that's supposed to be an arrow. That is the solution, is that point. So it's a point where we have an x, comma y. It's a point where they intersect. If there's no solution, if I were to have a line and another line, and they never touch. So if they're parallel, you can say no intersection, then there's no solution. And a lot of times with a system of equations, you'll get your variables to go away, and you'll get something like 0 equals 4 or 8 equals 6. Well, those aren't true statements, and so there would be no solution. Infinite solutions, okay, if I have my line, and then my other line actually is directly on top of it, that would give me infinite solutions. So this would be just when they're both the same line. Okay, and this you would get when your variables all cancel out and you get something that is true, like 4 equals 4 or 0 equals 0. Those are true statements, which means no matter what x and y is, this situation works. So that makes it infinite solutions. All right, so we're going to just practice solving these systems with two variables. And I want to use elimination for these. You'll use some substitution with all of our systems that we're going to do, but mostly we'll do elimination. And I have a few things that I want you to get in the habit of doing, and that is numbering these equations. So this is equation 1 and equation 2. So for all of these are all 1 and 2's. And you'll see why I have you do this when we get to the system with 3 variables, okay? It's not as critical to do that with systems with 2 variables, but it's good to be in the habit so you do it when you have harder problems. Okay, now with elimination, I want to be able to add these two equations together, and I want either x or y or both to go away if I add them up. And so in this case, I can add these two equations, and I can see right away that the 3x is going to cancel out to 0. Okay, so I have 0x. Well, I don't need to write that. But I have 4y plus 6y is 10y. And then 6 plus 24 is 30. Now I'm down to one variable, and I can solve for this variable. If I divide by 10, I get y is 3. Okay. Well, then I take one of those original equations. It doesn't matter which one. I usually just pick the one with the smaller numbers. So I'm going to pick number 1. And I'm going to plug that in where I see y. So I have 3x plus 4y, which is 3, equals 6. And then 3x plus 12 equals 6. And I solve this. So I'm going to subtract 12. I get negative 6. I divide by 3. So I get x is negative 2. Okay, so your final answer is actually going to be a negative 2. 3, and you do write it as an x comma y with parentheses, okay? And I want you to get in the habit of checking, okay? So I want to check, and I'm going to I used equation 1 to find x, so I'm going to use equation 2 to check it. And I just plug in my x and y, so it's negative 3 times negative 2 plus 6 times 3 equals 24. You just enter all of this in your calculator, and if you do it, negative 3 times negative 2 plus 6 times 3, you can either do it in your head or calculator, but you'll get 24. And the other side still is 24, and 24 does equal 24, so that checked out, okay? So my answer is negative 2, 3. So, sorry for the coughing. For this next problem, I can't just add these up like I did that one. These can't just add and x or y go away. So I need to multiply one or both of the equations by a number so that I can make one of my variables go away. So I look for the easiest one, and it's usually easiest to say, okay, well, this one doesn't have anything in front of it, so I can make it have anything in front of it. So it'll be easiest to get rid of my x's. Okay, if this is a positive 3x and I want to be able to add this x to it and it go away, this needs to be a negative 3x. So to make a negative 3x, I'm multiplying that entire bottom equation by negative 3. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite the first equation. I'm not touching that one. It's going to stay the exact same. That's still my equation 1. Now my equation 2 is just going to change by multiplying it by negative 3. So I get negative 3x minus 18y equals negative 24. And that's still equation 2. It's just changed a little bit. Okay, now I add them up. The x's cancel. The y's become a negative 14y equals negative 14. And I could solve for y by dividing by negative 14, so y is going to be 1. Okay, so I take that y and I plug it in. And we don't always just solve for, like, cancel out the x's. It just worked out this way that in these two problems that was the easiest thing to do. Sometimes you'll cancel the y out instead. I just wanted to point that out. And I plug it into the easiest one. I think this will be the easiest one. It's got the smaller numbers. So if I plug it into, oops, that's number 2. And plug it into number 2. I have x plus 6 times 1 equals 8. 6 times 1 is just 6, so I'm going to subtract it from both sides. So x is 2. Okay, so my final answer, I do not leave it just like this. I need to put 2, 1, and then I need to check it. So I use equation 2 to find my x. I'm going to use equation 1 to check it. And usually it's good to put, okay, this is where I checked. So, like, make a little note. And you do need to get in the habit of checking, especially when we get to the 3 variables. So I plug it in. I have 3 times 2 plus 4 times 1 equals 10. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 4 is 10. All right, last one on this page. Now, none of these can I just add up and a variable go away. I also don't have a variable with nothing in front of it where I can just multiply like I did here. So I just have to pick a variable to get rid of. And just because we've been doing the x's, let's go ahead and get rid of y. It would be easier to get rid of x's, it's just smaller numbers, but this method is the same. So if I want to get rid of y's, I need to find a number that both 4 and 6 go into. Well, they both go into 24. So I'm going to multiply this top one by 6, because that'll make that 24. And this one, if I multiply it by 4, it becomes positive 24, but I need one of them to be positive and one of them to be negative. So I'm actually going to multiply it by a negative 4. All right, so equation 1 becomes 18x plus 24y equals 30. Still equation 1, I just took that equation and I multiplied it by 6. Now I'm going to take equation 2 and I'm going to multiply it by negative 4. So I get negative 8x minus 24y equals negative 32. That is still equation 2. I just multiplied it by negative 4. All right, so now we add up. I have 18x plus minus 8x is 10x. The y's cancel, equal negative 2. Whoops, just a second. Okay, so to solve for x, I'm now going to divide by 10. So I get x equals a negative 2 over 10. And that simplifies to a negative 1 over 5. So there's x. Now I need to find y by plugging that back in. So it doesn't matter which one. I'm just going to plug it into the top one. So I have 3 times a negative 1/5 plus 4y equals 5. So I have a negative 3/5 plus 4y equals 5. So I'm going to add 3/5 to both sides. Now, I know you can do that math, but I want to show you another feature of your calculator. Okay? You have these beautiful, wonderful calculators that you had to get for this class. You should learn every feature of them. So I know I'm adding 3/5 to both sides, because if I add it to negative, it goes away. So it's 5 plus 3/5. So if I just put 3 divided by 5 and enter, and it gives me a decimal. But we like fractions. I mean, answers in fraction form, okay? Because sometimes our decimals can't round or aren't perfect like this. So if you take your calculator and push second and then go to this math, I'm sorry, don't even need to push second. Just push math. See that very, very first thing where it says frac? That stands for fraction. It will change your answer to a fraction. If you're in a fraction and want a decimal, if you push 2, it changes it to a decimal. So that's what those do. So I want to change this to a fraction. It automatically, if I was on a blank screen, it'll change my answer to a fraction. And that makes y, I'm sorry, not y, 4y equal 28 over 5. Because I added the 3/5. Now I need to divide by 4. Now, if you can't see how to do it, again, you can have your calculator do it, but hopefully you see if you're dividing by 4, it's like the same thing as multiplying by 1/4. This becomes a 7. That cancels, so y is going to equal 7/5. Okay? Sorry, excuse me. So now I have x and I have y, so I have a negative 1/5, 7/5. That's my answer. And you check it doing the same way, okay? So you do the check by plugging it into equation 2. And so I would have 2 times a negative 1/5 plus 6 times 7/5 equals 8. And I will tell you, 8 does equal 8, so we're good.